Well, let's get started. Hello, everyone. My name is Priya Bhutani. Thank you so much for joining us today. Due to the current economic environment, most regulatory teams are dealing with significant budget cuts. So we thought it would be apt and extremely valuable to discuss how regulatory teams can effectively manage regulatory operations under such constraints and pressure. Just for introduction purposes, for those who may not be familiar with Reg Desk, Reg Desk is a regulatory software platform that uses machine learning and artificial intelligence to make global compliance easier and faster. What our platform does is it provides RA teams with comprehensive and updated regulatory intelligence, tools to collaborate with local distributors, comprehensive tracking and reporting capability, and an application builder that enables teams to prepare their technical files for international markets within hours rather than relying on consultants or distributors to do so. Our approach to regulatory is quite unique and one that gives clients a competitive advantage. If you'd like to learn more or try out the system for free, we'd be happy to schedule a call offline to discuss this further. I'm personally very excited. We are so delighted to today have a leading expert from Uruguay, or rather I should say Latin America, Miss Adriana Belza. Adriana is an RA executive with over 30 years of experience. In her former role, she led the regulatory operations for the hospital medical device sector of J&J. She managed a portfolio of over 4,500 product registrations and over 400,000 SKUs. And during her leadership, she drove several initiatives on portfolio rationalization that led to over 1.5 million cost avoidance. Adriana brings tremendous amount of experience and insight, and I think I'm excited about this conversation with her today. But before we do that, I'd like to turn our attention to our attendees. Thank you again so much for joining us. At the end of this meeting, we will hold a brief Q&A. We encourage your participation, so please refer to the chat button on your screen. And in the interest of time, submit your questions throughout the course of our talk, and we'll try to address as many of your questions as we can. In case we run out of time, please email us your questions, and we'll try to address them via email. We'd also love your feedback on today's webinar and also ideas you may have for future webinar topics. And I know Adriana she and I have discussed, and she has a lot of other very interesting topics, one related to how to manage your distributors and the pitfalls with them. So that could be another series that we could bring. Let us know if you'd be interested in that. Well, with no further ado, Adriana, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you so much, Priya, for inviting me to this webinar. I'm really excited to be able to share a little bit about my experience. And I guess for those who are in the very early stages in their career, my advice, of things that nobody told me, that I think that it's very, very useful to have all those advices at the very early stages. So I'm really excited to be able to share my experience here with the team.
Wonderful. Well, thanks again. And yes, just in my conversations with you over the last couple of weeks, I feel like I've gained a lot. And I think your insight into just broader than just regulatory operations I think everyone can take away something from it. But I know the purpose of objective of today's conversation is COVID and spending budget cuts. So, dealing with COVID-19, it has been a strange and a very difficult time for most, including the medical device industry. Excuse me. Many companies are experiencing spending freezes and budget cuts. However, regulatory function is one that cannot stop, right? We can't hold off on regulatory operations and say, okay, let's not worry about registrations and approvals yet, or renewals for that matter, or compliance in general. Yep. Give your experience as the head of RA for all of Latin America, J&J, had some questions, starting off with, when a message of research and budget restraints comes from the corporate, it leaves teams feeling, frustrated. there's, they feel that, they don't have control over the situation anymore, even though they may have opinions on the matter. So in times of scarcity, can you ask management to invest in RA? How can they best approach this?
Yes, I think that COVID made the situation a little bit worse, but outside of the pandemic and all those terrible losses that we hear every day, I think that what the pandemic has brought is that it shows that you can do things differently. You are breaking paradigms. And also, like I said, COVID is making a little bit this a little bit harder. But usually when you ask for investment in regulatory, it's not easy to gain those investments, because usually regulatory is seen as a cost center more than a revenue generator, right? So I think that, can you ask for investment? I think yes, it depends on, I think that you need to do a little bit of a financial check on the company. If it's a large multinational or a smaller company, you need to understand really a little bit, gain some insights on what is the status of the company, right? A lot of companies, despite COVID, are struggling, but they still want to think, and they are already planning on what is going to be the post-COVID area, the post-COVID phase. And they are looking at opportunities on how can I grow faster? Is there a blockbuster in my pipeline that I can accelerate to generate revenue? So when you think about, asking for investment, I think that one of the key points is, have you prepared yourself to have a conversation with management on how to ask, right? So do you have enough information to build a business case? Do you have information on the return of the investment of that? And for that, usually regulatory professionals are very technical. And I think that you need to prepare yourself for that conversation. You need to get closer to finance, ask them, I have this idea. Usually what happens is that sometimes management is far from the trenches, and a lot of opportunities are seen, by the professionals in the field. And this is things that only you know, because you are the one who faces the challenges or who sees the opportunity, maybe to go to a regulator, or you can say, okay, if I get money for this trip, then I can, go to let's say my provider or my originating company and say, and learn about the testing for the product, and that can accelerate my review with Anvisa, for example. So I think that, you need to, you need to avoid the bias of, okay, I'm in regulatory, nobody's gonna invest money, or okay, it's COVID, nobody's gonna get me money for anything because we are in COVID. I don't think that this is a black and white. You need to understand the situation of your company. But yes, I think that you can, if you have a case, you need to move that case forward, because this is what we need. This is what we need: people engaged, people that, raise their hands when they see an opportunity. And I think that you're gonna gain if I was in the management and I have someone who says, hey, I found this opportunity to make money or to save or whatever, that's a person that I would listen and would say, okay, come and let me know what you're thinking, and then maybe I can help them, build a case and so forth. But I think that you don't have to have that bias of COVID means no investment or regulatory means no investment. That's not how I would approach the situation.
So would you suggest for someone, let's say, who's not in a leadership role, and can you suggest how they can contribute their input in these difficult times? Or again, as you said, COVID, no COVID, but spending freezes happen all the time, budget cuts happen, resources get cut. How can someone not in a leadership role and maybe far away from a corporate office, handle this? Who should they go to? Their management? What if the management's not open? How can they relay the criticalness of regulatory projects that are in the pipeline or ongoing?
The first thing I was saying, I think that you need to prepare yourself, right? You need to gather all the information, right? You need to go to and learn a little bit about finance, so that you can say, okay, I found this opportunity. Do I have enough to have a case? I think that, as always, in your network, you have people that are closer to the regulatory area, either because they had contacted before or because they had a great experience with regulatory and so forth. And I think that you can validate some of those ideas that you have, right? Sometimes you have an idea, maybe it's not the right, let's say maybe you invest a lot and the revenue of that idea is going to be very little. So maybe you need to switch and not go behind that, not pursue that idea, and think of something that it's more like has more scale in terms of the opportunity, right? So you need to be cognizant of how much time I'm going to invest in the idea, and then what is going to be the return of that investment, because maybe there are other things. I think that you need to, it's good, one of the things that I believe that it's critical, Priya, is that you need to, even though I know it's a very, very hard time in the personal side and people are struggling to manage both, I think that you don't have to feel helpless, when it comes of going and talk to your management. It's a time where people are going to listen. Any opportunity, to get some return, if you invest something, any opportunity is going to be valid, because everybody's looking at challenging the different models. And if you know what you do, and this is also something that I think that you need in order to propose solutions, you need to be able to read a financial statement, for example, and understand how is the money in your department being invested. For example, you have people, you have contractors, you have translations, you have fees. So the more you know, and the deeper is your knowledge on the granularities of your budget, those are the opportunities that you can act upon. That's so to speak about the financial piece. But also we are, how can you become a good negotiator? Because you go to any regulator and you say, I have this, or what do you need? I think that it's not only about money, it's about being influential, and again, being a negotiator. And this is something that usually people that come from those technical backgrounds, people don't have that. We are very technical. We see things in black and white. And usually there's a great amount of different shades of gray that you can, how you position yourself in front of a problem. So I think that you have to believe that you can do it. Don't think that, I think that this is the opportunity to emerge as a leader. I think that I would take, when we have all these calamities over history, there have been people that have emerged more stronger and as leaders. And so I think that this is the right time for you. If you have ideas, give a step forward. You can have, you're going to have a great opportunity now to position yourself in the company as a business person as well.
So I know in our conversation you had touched upon, embracing the fact that regulatory can be a revenue generator, and you had, yes, can you talk a little bit more about that? And I know you mentioned things about, pointers about, okay, think about your shipment held at the customs, and examples of, if your company is currently negotiating an acquisition or divestiture. So how do you yes, can you?
Yeah, I think it goes to what I was saying at the beginning, what are the lines in your budget, right? So how can you identify how the company spends money? And going to your earlier question, I think now it's the time for you to look beyond your role, right? Because there might be opportunities where the advice of a regulatory expert can unlock a lot of things and can either generate revenue, because maybe you act with a regulator and you can accelerate the approval of a product, and so you can generate leads. So you're going to generate sales, you're going to be impacting the top line. So you are a contributor of the top line, not because you sell, but because you open doors with the regulators, or because you identify proactively issues that you can have, right? But also when you think about the spending, and this is why we are labeled as regulatory, as a cost center. Actually, there are a lot of situations where, let's say, for example, usually when you have your portfolio, right, mainly in Latin America, you have to, in a lot of countries as well, you have to renew the license, right? Usually we go and we do this automatically. Okay, the license is going to expire next month, and then I'm going to renew the license. So I think that what you can do is get the number of licenses that you have that you need to submit, let's say in 3 months from now, and do a financial assessment of those licenses. So you go to finance, you ask them, okay, what is what are the sales of this product? What is the net income that I can have with those products? and the profit. And then you have all this information, and then you go to your marketing teams, right? It depends on if it's a large company or if it's a smaller company. You go to whomever has the authority to tell you what to do with that renewal. And you tell them, okay, you want me to renew this? We have been renewing this for the past 3 years, the past 5 cycles, for example, or whatever. And then you tell them what is the purpose of keeping that product in the portfolio. There can be a reason. Sometimes you have products in your portfolio, not because they sell, but because they are the opportunity for making a contract with a customer. They want to have the full line. And so this is why, despite the sales, you have to have that renewal. But at the end of the day, you're going to be amazed when you see how many products we are renewing that we do not sell. And this is a cost. So it's, yes, you are a cost center, but at the end of the day, if you raise your hand and you present the information to your management that you are spending money in something that is going to give you 0 return, I think that this is something that you can do so that you can avoid that expense, right? It can be also sometimes, it's very broad. You can sometimes, when you come to Latin America, and this is globally, you have a harmonized tariff code, right? When you have to, this is the language that the countries use to ensure that the goods move around the world. Usually when you go to the country, you have to do that classification of the harmonized tariff code. And depending on how you classify the product pays 18% taxes or 10% taxes. So you see that this is outside of regulatory, but your expertise can help classify the product properly so that maybe you are paying more taxes that you would need to pay for those. Or you, like I said, you can talk to the custom broker and tell them, when the shipment is held at custom, you can act and provide your regulatory expertise, and this will allow you to release the shipment faster. So you're going to avoid all the costs that you have when a shipment is rejected, that you have to go to a warehouse, you have to pay storage and all of that. So I think that, there are some opportunities. So this is why my advice to hear the audience is that you need to go outside of the scope of your area. You need to be cognizant of how much you know. It's amazing how much we know and how much we learn all through our career, how many examples we have. And then you can, apply that knowledge in different areas. It can be customs, it can be the Anvisa, it can be the operating company providing information for the testing, so that when you design the product is already incorporating all those testing that otherwise, for example, in Brazil, you have to do the mechanical testing for the orthopedic product. And if you don't have that, you are not going to be able to register the product. So you see that if you have a broader mind, just beyond your scope, you can see a lot of opportunities that other people will not see. And so this is a little bit of how can you, again, it talks about leaving your boundaries, so that you can see more opportunities, because you are the expert. Nobody is more authorized than you to speak up in several things that happen. So I think that you have a huge opportunity there.
Thank you. Those, I think, are, you bring up some really good points about how companies can think about saving costs, but how does one justify, let's say, if you have some registrations that there's pressure, but then there's always cost to actually doing the registration. So I know we talked more about the renewal piece. How can one justify to their management the cost to continue with registrations of, perhaps maybe new registrations, or not holding those back because of the freeze?
Yeah, I think that, I think it has to do, the first thing that I would do is I would use this opportunity to clean up the house, because I think that everybody's open. When you talk about savings, everybody's going to be open to help you. So you can't do this alone. I think that the most important thing is that you need to reach out and say, hey, would you like to join me to do this? And you need to have maybe someone in marketing, someone, in supply chain, someone, finance. Because I think that you need a lot of perspectives to find and capture the full benefit of an initiative, for example, like rationalization. So you're going to be amazed. When you assemble a team, you're going to be amazed by the number of things that people put on the table that can help you make the good decisions, right? So let's say that I have my portfolio, which is comprised of 100 registrations, right? if I am in a meeting with finance and supply chain, they can say, okay, we haven't imported that product in the past year and a half. Finance can tell you we have not generated any revenue for those products, then the net income is negative. So you start gaining information and you realize that you are spending, I don't know, let's say that each registration in a country, the cost is $1,000. And sometimes you don't even pay with the revenue, you don't even get to pay the cost of the license, right? So I think that data, you know, one of the things that I kept telling my team is that when you own data, when you know data, and you know that data is the flavor of the digital and anything, right? When you know the data, it's very easy to make a compelling case. So you can go to your management and say, hey, we have this portfolio of 100 products. Out of those, 50% do not sell, right? And the 50% that sells, maybe the net income or whatever figure that you manage within your company is showing that you are not making any money out of those, right? It's not that we are going to make the decision, because I think that something that we need to understand is that we are not the owners of the decision, but we have a commitment, a responsibility with the company to present them that data, because sometimes they don't know what is the cost of a registration. How many times we have heard people coming to us several times saying, what is the cost? And not only when I think about the cost, something that I believe that we make a mistake is that we tell them, okay, and Visa charges me $3,000. And this is the direct cost of the registration, but you have an indirect cost, which goes around, you know, the cost of my salary, the cost of the management, the travel, the contractors. So there's a hidden, not a hidden, it's called indirect cost that needs to go, you know, also in the equation, because the cost of a product is not just the fee. You work on the product, you pay salaries to the teams to register those products. So it's really critical, you know, that you have all this information, and don't make the mistake to say that you only, the cost is only the fee. The cost is everything. So once you have that, you can analyze that portfolio, and then you can go to your management and present that case. And it's the same with every line of the P&L. You know, you can go and look at travel. What are the travel now that, you know, in the past, we would never think about Anvisa accepting having Zoom with experts in science in the originating companies. And we have had a recent experience with all, you know, several people very knowledgeable were in a Zoom meeting with Anvisa. So now it's the time to challenge yourself and be honest with yourself on what is critical, what is core to your function, and what is non-core. And when you look at the core, you know, you leave the non-core, and then you say, okay, this is the core, how can I manage? Of course that we are gonna have, Priya, in these times, any vacant position, if, you know, that would be the best. If you have vacant positions, they are not gonna be hired, and we are gonna have more work to do, right? So if you have more work to do, now has come the time to identify what is critical, how you become good at prioritizing your work, because you're going to have those skills on prioritizing and understanding. So do I renew a product that sells zero, or I spend my time in, you know, identifying barriers for this blockbuster that I wanna register, and it's going to generate revenues for the company. So it's really the right time to classify, understand what you do, what are the non-core activities, how can you identify, for example, if you are doing translations, is there a way that I can bundle my translations with marketing so that I can gain scale and lower the cost? Now that everybody's going to be in a tough situation, can I ask for other quotations from providers so that I can lower the cost? Can I automate? You know, now that we have for many, maybe for the large multinationals, can we automate translations using all those tools that you may be well aware, using, you know, intelligence and so forth? So for every line of the P&L, you can challenge yourself and identify opportunities. Contractors, outsourcing. Am I outsourcing the core? Can I outsource all the low competency activities to maybe lower labor cost providers? And maybe, you know, when you do all those tactical activities, it does not require to pay a salary of a person that's very technical. You can use your technical expertise for what's core, and then you can outsource and pay less for the activities that are really tactical. So that's a little bit of how you have many opportunities to do that.
I know we don't have too much time. If anyone has questions, please ask. But otherwise, you know, I know you have some tips that you want to before we leave, but I just real quick just wanted to touch upon, given that extensive experience in dealing with Latin American countries, do you have any tips on how RA can specifically manage the RA operations in Latin America? And I know a lot of it will be applicable for other markets as well, but are there any certain tips and things that you might have to dealing with Latin America specifically?
Yeah, and like you said, it's not about Latin America. It's about being. The more you grow in the organization, Priya, I think that you need to be cognizant that you're going to become a business person, right? And in order for you to get there, you need to prepare yourself. So that's my tip number one. Prepare yourself, believe that you can. Nothing is impossible. COVID has shown that we can do a lot of things. So prepare yourself, learn, and be curious, of course. And then I think that once you prepare yourself and you practice a lot what you do, the tone of your voice when you present to management, how you stand in front of the management, I think that this is key to gain confidence from the person listening to your case. The second tip that I have has to do with, I would say, embrace the fact, I would say that the tip number two would be make finance your best partner. I think that we come from technical areas, we don't know finance, and I think that finance, you're going to see how open they are to give them your time on teaching you things, because I think that you are going to be their like an enabler of what they need, of what they want to do with other areas of the company. So someone that shows learning, interest in learning in finance is someone that I would say I would go to and give my time to them and advice and so on. The other thing is, like I said, believe that regulatory can be a revenue generator. I think that usually we only see the empty glass, but if you change your attitude, in front of the problem, I think that you can move from being the victim to being the protagonist. So embrace that. You are empowered to talk. Of course that you need to do some reaching out to other people. So you need to reach out to them, and you need to let them know that you're interested, but you can be a revenue generator. And I gave you just a few examples. The other thing is that you need to list all the activities that you do. That's a nice exercise. Identify what is core, what is non-core, what I can drop, right? And I think that's just my last advice is you need to learn to say no, because usually, sorry, now that you have a lot of maybe less people that are going to be potentially terminated, this is the right time for you to exercise being good at saying no, at putting aside things. Focus on the core, focus on really what generates the revenue for the company, focus on the opportunities that if you have done all the 4 previous steps and you have done that exercise and you have trained yourself on doing that, you're going to be much, much better in, prioritizing the activities that you can and identify what you can drop. But now it's the time to say no. And again, I think that I know that it's very, very hard, the situation that we live in. But like in the mindfulness practices, you cannot control the outside. You can control how you react to the problem, right? And I think that this is on us. And I think that if you use those tips that I gave the team here, I think that they're going to be, at least they're going to start making the steps to being really someone that can provide advice to the company in these hard times and really being perceived as someone that can add a lot of value to the company.
Yeah, no, thank you. That this is perfect timing. If anyone has any questions, we can stick around. If not, if you come up with questions, please feel free to email us. You can email us at desk@regdesk.co, and we'll be happy to address questions. But I understand, Adriana, now you've started your own consulting. Is that right?
That's correct. That's correct. I'm embracing several projects now.
Yes. So if anyone's looking for strategic advice for Latin America, then let us know. We'd be happy to connect you directly to Adriana.
Thank you so much.
Adriana, thank you so much for your insight. We have one question.
We have one question. Yes.
They're saying, from my experience, the registration budget is managed by the sales marketing representatives that are managing the Latin America region and not so much by regulatory. What's your take on this?
My take on this is that if you are really, and you believe that you are a business person, it doesn't matter where the money relies. At the end of the day, you are part of a company that needs to deliver financial results. So it doesn't matter if it's in the right pocket or the left pocket. If it's in the left pocket, you raise your hand, you go and talk to that person and say, hey, I see an opportunity on how you can save this so that you can invest more in your customers. You can invest in things that you can do with them rather than spending this on things that do not generate any revenue. So that's why one of my biggest advice is go beyond the scope of your area. If you keep focusing on just your area, you're not going to be taking all the value that you as regulatory professional can provide.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Adriana.
No, thank you for the opportunity.
And for the audience, please let us know if you'd be interested in a topic on distributors. I would be very excited personally. I think you have really a lot of insights into that. So let us know if that is a topic that would be of interest to you. We can definitely, would love to have Adriana back to have that discussion on.
My pleasure, Priya.
Once again, thank you, and thanks everyone.
Have a wonderful rest of the day and stay safe.
Yes, yes.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.